بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأنكحوا الأيام منكم والصالحين من عبادكم وإمائكم إن يكونوا فقراء يغنهم الله من فضله والله واسع عليم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين العبد المؤيد الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. أما بعد فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم: ما من بناء في الإسلام أحب إلى الله من التزويج. So far I have explained some of the rules regarding temporary marriage. There are some other rules which I still have to discuss, and they are important. Before going into the details and mentioning the rules one by one, I have to tell you that in a temporary marriage, the husband and wife have their own obligations, duties, and rights. Each party to the marriage has to fulfill his or her obligation and has to give the rights of the other party. In temporary, a woman's right in temporary marriage is that she must be available for her husband as and when he needs her, and she must not abstain from having sexual intercourse with her husband, because this is the only obligation that she must fulfill and that she must carry out. She has no other obligation to fulfill. She has no other obligations towards her husband and towards her in-laws. In temporary marriage, a woman can go out without her husband's permission. A woman can go shopping. A woman can visit her parents, provided that that's important, provided that her going out of her husband's house does not entail any violation of her husband's rights. If it is in contradiction, if it is in opposition to her husband's right, then she cannot go out. A woman has the right to have her dowry, her marriage gift, as soon as the marriage is concluded and as soon as the contract and the nikah is consummated. We have two kinds of marriage gifts. One is given immediately after the nikah, and the other can be given anytime upon the wife's demand. It is a right of the wife that the man has to give. Therefore, the mahr is either mu'ajjal or mu'ajjal. The time is either extended or it is short. If the time is short and the husband has no time, he has to give it because he is indebted to his wife. He owes his wife and he must pay off the debt to his wife as soon as he can. And the mahr, if it is extended, then of course he must give it as and when the wife demands it. So, as far as the wife's, of course, the husband's obligations are concerned, of course, it is a duty of the husband to provide, to give the marriage gift to his wife, and there is no maintenance, there is no nafaqah, there is no expenses for medical treatment, there is no expenses for clothing and things like that. As I mentioned in the previous program, a woman can exempt her husband of the marriage gift. She can tell him that I don't want my marriage gift, I don't want the dowry, I don't need the mahr, and I just need you. If she says that, then of course the husband is relieved of the obligation of mahr, and it's not necessary for him to give anything to his wife. According to religious authorities, a man cannot neglect sexual relations with his wife for a period or for more than a period of 4 months. And it does not make any difference whether the marriage is temporary or permanent. She must have conjugal relations with his wife at least once in 4 months. This is a duty, this is obligatory. And of course, it does not make any difference whether a person is in his hometown or on a journey. If he is on a journey, he has to return home and then meet his wife and meet his sexual desire, satisfy her sexual desire. That is a must. Yes, of course, sometimes a man cannot go back home because he is living in another country. If the wife consents to the man's being absent or to the man's being away from her, then there is no objection, there is no problem. But if she wants him to be back home, then it is necessary for the husband to go back home, to return home and satisfy his wife's sexual demand, sexual need. In case a husband and a wife cannot conceive a child because either the husband has a problem or the wife is suffering from a problem due to which she cannot conceive, then insemination is allowed, but there are some details that I have to mention. And these rules which I'm mentioning are applicable to both the permanent as well as the temporary wife. Artificial insemination is allowed on the condition. There are certain details which I will mention. And as you know that when the artificial insemination is done, the husband has to give sperm, and then the wife should also give eggs, and then the insemination takes place outside the womb, outside the uterus. If this process involves a non-mahram, a stranger, seeing the woman's private part or touching her private part, this is absolutely not permissible. In case the husband himself is a doctor and she inseminates and he actually undertakes the procedure, then there is no problem in it. Of course, if a man and a woman, or if a couple will suffer great difficulty as a result of not having a child, because not having a child itself is a problem which is sometimes unbearable for some families, and it creates such a problem and such a crisis in the family that it is almost unbearable. Now, if this is the case, of course, they can refer to a doctor, preferably a female doctor, and then the semen, the sperm can be given to that doctor, the eggs can be given to that doctor, and the insemination should be done by the doctor out of the uterus, and then it can be inserted once for all, it can be inserted into the woman's uterus by that doctor. That is only once for all, because the family will disintegrate if they do not have a child. The family will suffer great problems because of not having a child. So once for all, this is permissible, and provided that not having a child creates a problem for them. And if, of course, they are easy with having or not having a child, then in that case, again, it's not permissible for them to refer to a doctor and to expose their private parts. Especially for a woman, it is forbidden for her to expose her private part to someone else. But if they are going to have suffer from a problem, from a serious and severe problem, which is normally not bearable, then they can do this once for all. And of course, if they have one child, as a result of this artificial insemination, then they can never go for a second artificial insemination, because the problem, they needed a child and they have a child now, and they cannot go again to a doctor to expose their private parts for another insemination. Now, some families have many children. They have enough children and they do not need any more. They want to use contraceptives. Is it permissible for the man or the woman to use contraceptives? Of course, all the religious authorities have said that they can use contraceptives. The woman especially can use pills. She can tie the tube. Of course, she can resort to IUD in order to prevent conception, to prevent pregnancy, and that is allowed. Any kind of contraceptives are allowed to use, and there is no problem in preventing yourself from becoming pregnant. Of course, that is allowed. And of course, there are different devices, different procedures for preventing pregnancy, and all those devices are allowed. It is permissible to use, for example, intrauterine device, which is called IUD, and of course other birth control devices, and there's no problem in it. Of course, there are some ulama and some scholars who have said that a woman cannot tie the tube in such a way that it is irreversible. If it is irreversible, it's not permissible. But if it is reversible, of course, if one day she needs to untie the tube in order for her to become pregnant, then there is no problem. So there is a question of reversibility and irreversibility. According to some scholars, if someone ties the tube irreversibly, it's not permissible. Whereas some other scholars have said that there is no problem and a woman can use all kinds of control measures and she can use all kinds of contraceptives to prevent pregnancy. And remember that it is not an obligation of the wife to become pregnant. A husband cannot force his wife to become pregnant, because it's not her duty, it is not her obligation in the first place to conceive a child. She cannot be forced into conceiving a child, into becoming pregnant. Nor can the wife make her husband to impregnate her or to do something in order for the woman to become pregnant. She cannot force her husband to do this. This is a matter of mutual consent. It's a mutual decision. Both sides have to decide whether they want a child or they do not want a child. Okay, if they want a child, then they can take action for it, they can go for it. And if they do not want a child, then they can use contraceptives, they can use birth control measures in order to stop pregnancy. This is an important thing, and this is, of course, one of the frequently asked questions. Readers, internet users ask this question a lot.
ناجيتك يا رحمن ودعوتك يا ديان يا خالق الإنسان الله 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 يا خالق الإنسان الله الله الله.
Now again, there are occasions in which a woman becomes pregnant unwantedly. She did not expect to become pregnant. All of a sudden she realizes that she is pregnant. Now sometimes a woman becomes pregnant with the sperm of her own husband, and sometimes there is an adultery taking place. And the woman is afraid of her honor, of her reputation in society. She is afraid of losing her life and reputation if she is known to have become pregnant. In which case, can a woman go for abortion or not? What is the Islamic law about abortion? Can the woman or the husband agree or take action for abortion if he wants to abort the child, or if she wants to abort the child? Of course, generally speaking, abortion is not allowed. It is impermissible for a man or for a woman to abort the child. It does not make any difference whether the woman goes to a doctor and aborts the child, or she eats something in order to kill the fetus, the embryo, or the husband takes action in order to abort the child without the consent of the woman. It does not make any difference. In either case, abortion is not allowed. Now, even if the woman has become pregnant as a result of adultery, it is not permissible for her to abort. This is the general law. But there is an answer, a solution. If a woman is really and genuinely afraid of losing her honor and reputation and of a greater danger which is normally unbearable, of a hardship which is not bearable for the family, for example, let's assume that the child, that a man and a woman, both of them legally married, and the woman becomes pregnant unwantedly. Now the woman is either suffering from a disease, or she cannot bear the child, or she is afraid of difficulties in her life, so now she wants to abort the child. The grand religious authorities have said if the woman or the family is afraid of hardship which is unbearable, or if the woman is suffering from a disease and she cannot carry the child in her stomach, otherwise her health will be at serious risk, then in that case it is permissible for the woman to have abortion. Abortion is allowed, provided that the child has not attained the 4th month of pregnancy. If it is the 4th month and the 4th month has completed and it is now going to become the 5th month, because according to religious authorities, a child gains soul and the soul enters the child at the completion of 4 months or at the 4th month. It might be in the middle of the 4th month and the child becomes alive. It receives the soul. Then in that case, abortion is absolutely forbidden because the child is alive. And aborting the child means killing a living human being, and that is not permissible. Before the 4th month, of course, abortion would be permissible under specific circumstances, and one of the circumstances that if the mother is sick and she cannot carry the child, or if a girl is absolutely afraid of her life and she might not be able to live in her community, in her society, in her family, if her family or the people around her knows that she has become pregnant due to adultery, then in that case, of course, because of the difficulty which comes after it, and because of the hard consequences which are not bearable and which are not sufferable by the woman, in that case, abortion is allowed. But even then, it is necessary for the woman. It is necessary for the person who is directly involved in the abortion. He could be a doctor, because normally a woman goes to a doctor and asks the doctor to abort the child. Now, whoever is directly involved in the abortion, he must give the blood money, which is called diya, and diya is obligatory, and it should be paid by the person who is directly involved in the abortion. Inshallah, I will carry on the discussion. I will mention the amount of kafara, the amount of penalty which the person who is involved in the abortion should give, and the amount of kafara differs from month to month. If it is the last month of pregnancy, of course, the amount of kafara and penalty doubles and triples. And if it is the first month, it is less than, it is affordable, of course. And inshallah, do carry on and follow up the discussion. I will mention the amount of kafara in the next session to come. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم بارك للحجاج والزوار في الزاد والنفقة، واقض ما أوجبت عليهم من الحج والعمرة بفضلك ورحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.